Now we know how an artificial neuron works. We saw that it takes multiple inputs, multiplies them with weights, adds a bias, and produces a weighted sum. That weighted sum is then passed forward in the network. Now, if you think about it carefully, till this point whatever we are doing is just simple math. We are multiplying numbers, adding them, and passing the result. So if we keep adding more neurons and more layers, will the network automatically become powerful? At first it might feel like yes, more layers should mean more learning capability. But the reality is a little different. Even if you add hundreds of layers, if every neuron is only doing linear operations, the entire network will still behave like a simple linear model. And that means it will not be able to learn complex patterns. It will only be able to learn straight-line relationships. So we need something that can break this linear behavior. And that is where activation functions come in. After calculating the weighted sum, instead of directly passing that value forward, we pass it through a function. That function decides what should be the output of that neuron. Now this is not just a random transformation. This step introduces nonlinear behavior into the network. And that is what allows the network to learn complex relationships. Now to understand this better, let us look at some commonly used activation functions. The first one is sigmoid. It takes any input value and converts it into a value between 0 and 1. So no matter how large or small the input is, the output will always be within this range. Because of this behavior, sigmoid is very useful when we want to represent probability, like in binary classification problems. Imagine you are building a model for a football game which predicts whether a player will score a goal or not. Now, before calculating the final output, the model considers things like distance from goal, angle, and defender pressure. Suppose the raw output looks like this. Shot 1 has a score of -4. Shot 2 has a score of 0. Shot 3 has a score of 3. But this data is a little confusing and does not clearly tell us what will happen. So we apply the sigmoid function to this raw data. After applying the sigmoid function, we get probabilities like this. Sigmoid -4 is approximately 0.018, which means a very low chance. Sigmoid 0 is 0.5, which means a 50-50 chance. Sigmoid 3 is approximately 0.95, which means a very high chance. Now it becomes useful. Shot 1 has only a 1.8% chance, so we can safely say that if the player opts for that shot, he will not be able to score the goal. Shot 2 has a 50% chance, so we can say that the outcome is uncertain and could go either way. Shot 3 has a 95% chance, so we can say that if the player takes that shot, he will almost certainly score the goal. But sigmoid also has a limitation. When the input becomes very large or very small, the output becomes almost constant. It gets very close to either 0 or 1. And when that happens, the gradient becomes very small, which means the learning slows down significantly. If we consider the same goal prediction example, suppose the raw scores given by the model are extreme like this. Shot 1 has a score of. Shot 2 has a score of 0. Shot 3 has a score of 10. After applying the sigmoid function, we get sigmoid -10 is approximately 0.00004, which is almost 0. Sigmoid 0 is 0.5, which is normal. Sigmoid 10 is approximately 0.99995, which is almost 1. That means shot 1 has only a 0.004% chance, so we can say that the player will definitely not score the goal. Shot 3 has a 99.995% chance, so we can say that the player will almost certainly score the goal. Now no matter how much you change the input, if it becomes -20 or -50, the output will still remain close to 0. If 10 becomes 20 or 50, the output will still remain close to 1. The model learns using gradients, which is another name for slopes. But in these extreme regions, the sigmoid curve becomes flat and the slope becomes almost 0. Very small gradient means very tiny weight updates, which leads to very slow learning. Now let us look at another function, which is ReLU. ReLU stands for rectified linear unit. In this function, if the input is positive, it returns the same value. If the input is negative, it returns 0. For positive values, it does not compress the output. So the gradient remains strong, and because of this, learning becomes faster and more stable. That is the reason ReLU is widely used in hidden layers. ReLU and Sigmoid both return a single value. Now what if we need multiple outputs? For that we use a function called Softmax. Softmax is mainly used in multi-class classification problems. Instead of giving a single output, it produces multiple outputs. Each output represents the probability of a class. For example, if we are reading a handwritten digit, then we will have 10 outputs. Each output will have a probability value. And all these probabilities will add up to 1. So the model will choose the class with the highest probability. Now let us see how this fits into the whole process. A neuron first calculates the weighted sum. Then the activation function decides how that value should be transformed before passing it forward. Without activation functions, even a deep neural network will behave like a simple linear model. So activation functions are what actually give power to neural networks. Now till this point, we understand how the network produces an output. But we still do not know whether that output is correct or not. So in the next part, we will understand how we measure the error in prediction using loss functions. If you find this interesting and useful, do not forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next one. Till then, let us keep learning.